A 45-year cycle that deals with upheaval, breakthrough, and innovation? Tell me more. On June 14th, we have a very exciting aspect. It's going to be Saturn's second out of 3 exact squares to Uranus. Although we are feeling this aspect over the entirety of 2021. It is the defining aspect of 2021. And this is a 45-year cycle that deals with reforming the system. I hope you're happy to hear it, because as the staple book on every predictive astrologer's bookshelf, Mundane Astrology, describes, that change is imminent. It's happening. It has to. You can't fight the current of evolution. We as people, each generation is evolving and bringing new ideas and new values to the forefront. And it's time for our society and the laws and the policies and everything like that to catch up to the very current and present values of the world and us. So it's interesting because, I'll just say first before I forget that the first exact square was February 17th. So we're going to see a recall of some stories of that, which I'll get to at the end. And then we have one more, and that's at the very end of this year on December 24th. So, and then it'll continue to be activated by Mars and other important aspects and planets and things like that into 2022. So we'll be seeing this aspect play out for a while. But yes, reform is happening because Saturn really represents tradition. It represents the status quo. It represents the old ways, the ways of yore. And Uranus is the breakthrough, the innovation, and the liberation. And it's all about sovereignty. And so these two, even in mythology, go head to head. And so that's what we're experiencing right now. But in mythology, Saturn actually wins. But in reality, Uranus always wins, because you can't fight the current of evolution. You can't fight the current of consciousness evolving. And so there are people trying to fight to hold on to the old order because the old system benefits them. But it's a losing battle, let me tell you. Although, progress is usually incremental, so that's kind of the downside if you're as progressive as I am. But so yeah, we're definitely seeing some big steps forward though happening right now, probably because this aspect coincides with the global pandemic, which has further emphasized and highlighted all the ways in which the system is no longer able to provide for our current needs. We're in late stage capitalism. The government was like, here's a bunch of checks. First taste of universal basic income, which I predicted in my talk on Saturn and Aquarius. It's available for $5 download right now. I also successfully predicted that we would see new viruses coming in. So you can check that out on my website. But I digress. So yes, universal basic income, we have seen that. We have seen why it was such an important need for all of us right now. And congruently around this time, we're seeing the contrast between a minimum wage that doesn't actually provide minimum living, standards of living. And so many people are choosing to stay on unemployment rather than go back and make less, than a basic wage. So I know that some companies are changing their policies. I know that Chipotle has changed and raised up their wages for their workers, which is frickin' awesome. But it would be really cool to see it happen on a federal level too. And we might start to see more conversations around that right now as things kind of heat up and we're seeing the pressure build on that front. Another big thing, we're talking about reform. So one of my favorite topics of the year is it becoming more mainstream to discuss why it makes sense to defund the police. And so I think that really actually fits nicely with this, because people think, oh no, what would that look like? And if you actually read the arguments about it, there's some really grounded and really practical reasons why we would want to defund the police and actually invest in other resources in our community. So anyways, it's just kind of shifting the way that we think about everything. It's shifting the way we think about work, thinking about the way we shift, education, childcare, the way that we socialize. It's changing everything. I mean, Saturn, this Saturn-Uranus square, it's not just about the policies and the government. Yes, it's a big place where that shows up. We're talking about systemic racism and really kind of awakening Uranus to how deeply embedded it is, and awakening us to how we change that, It's motivating us to do better, to do a lot better. And so that's one other area that it is, but it's also within the general framework of our personal lives too. This square is happening somewhere in our chart. So I know fixed signs are especially going through it. That's going to be Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. You guys are fixed. You're steady. We can depend on you. And it's really, and just in your character, you're just a little bit more resistant to making really big changes. It might feel a little scary. This aspect getting activated in early July especially. So we're going to feel it now, but we're going to feel it especially in early July when Mars actually activates this Saturn-Uranus square. That's going to be the push, wherever you feel a little bit resistant to the changes, the big scary change that you need to make, because there's this tension, right, between the limiting structures that are limiting and we know that they're not so great, but at least they're keeping us safe. And then there's the unknown frontier. And I think Mars is going to really instigate this. So while we're going to feel it, and we're going to see some themes kind of reemerge this week around this exact point, we're really going to feel it in July, let me tell you, because we're going to get the eclipse activation. We're going to get the Mars activation of this. It's going to be a good time, July. So get ready. So if you've been feeling like, I got to make this move, I got to make a change, I'm miserable, but I don't know, because the devil I know is better than the devil I don't know. Remember, change is imminent. It has to happen. It has to happen, and it's going to happen. And it's just a matter of how and when you're ready. So yeah, I mean, we've just also seen just like the hypocrisy of a healthcare system which doesn't cater to our most essential workers. So I think that we may see some developments with like healthcare and everything like that in time. But the really cool thing that we are seeing is, so let's look back at some of the themes that came up with the first one in February 17th. So a couple things that are interesting and in development is so this idea about where this virus came from. And right around the last one, right around February 17th, like right within a few days of that, WHO and China collaborated and they did an investigation into the virology lab, I think I said it right, in Wuhan to determine if this is where the virus came from, if it was a mistake, if it like accidentally came from the lab, or if it was like maybe more deliberate. I mean, who knows? But so they investigated that and they found that it's probably unlikely, is what Wikipedia says, extremely unlikely. But now some things have changed. Saturn is retrograde, so we're retrieving, we're going back. And now President of the United States, Biden, is like, maybe we should reinvestigate this. So we're seeing the second hit, which is often like the retrograde hit. So we're retrieving that story, we're going back to it, and we're going to investigate it and see what is going on. Also around that date, we had some exciting things happening with the Mars rovers and everything. And I got to thinking about space. And I got to thinking about this Pentagon disclosure that's happening. And let me tell you, I've got some stories about UFOs. I would love to share them with you guys sometime. I've seen many of them. And it really is like when actually you take the time to consider what that would mean for us to become like an intergalactic civilization, like how that would drastically shift the framework. Like think about how the world, how societies are changed when we travel and we trade, you know, thinking more historically. When we travel and we trade, we intermingle, we share knowledge, we share philosophies, we share beliefs, we share science and everything like that. Can you fucking imagine what that would be like to engage with an interstellar civilization and what that would do for us. I'm not saying it's going to happen anytime soon, but I do think that it's interesting that the Pentagon is talking more seriously about disclosure. I mean, it's always been out there. Government officials have always been sharing this knowledge. It's just that most people, it just didn't fit in to any kind of anything else. So why pay attention to it? But now I think it fits nicely with this Saturn-Uranus square, where it's like, well, we don't know what's happening anymore. We don't know what's real anymore. So why not knock over all the dominoes and then we'll rebuild again? So I think that is interesting. We might see that coming back up. And then the other thing we're seeing, so right around the first exact Saturn-Uranus square, we saw the extreme weather happening in Texas. And, Texas and surrounding areas not prepared to deal with that kind of weather. And the power was out and the roads were closed and many people suffered and some people died, and it was really tragic. And I think that really speaks to the greater story around Uranus and Taurus, which is about liberating the earth and finding more ways to live in harmony with the earth, and using technology to do so. Like, we actually do have the technology to live in greater harmony with our planet and to reduce our consumption and to reduce our waste. And we really do have the technology to do it. It's just that it's expensive, and the powers that be really are the ones more resistant to the change. It is happening. Like, we rejoined the Paris Agreement also around this last Saturn-Uranus square in February. So we may see some kind of bigger push, because our time is running out. Like, we have to do something. We have to do something about this. And I'm really a big fan of, doing what we can as individuals, but it's really hard for us to do more with the means that we have, when we really do depend a lot on the infrastructure in order to create overall healthier and more sustainable guidelines. Because you and me can eliminate our waste and our trash, but think about these larger corporations and countries and things like that. It really needs to happen on a mass level. So those are some of the themes that I see coming up around the Saturn-Uranus square, and we'll see it this week. We'll see it in July. We'll see it as Mars continues to set it off. So at the end of the year, also in December, I think Mars should be squaring that then as well. So this is a slightly longer video because I haven't given you one yet on Saturn square Uranus. So I hope it's good for you. And I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm ready to make some innovations. I'm ready to make some changes, and I'm ready to see it in the world. And let's do this. So that was your extended astrology shot of the day. Thanks so much for joining me today. For more astrology in your world, you can connect with me on Instagram or Twitter or Patreon at AstroCatherine. You can book your reading with me at my website, and I look forward to connecting with you.